We'll now call the March 14th City of Clarksburg meeting to order.
Martin Howe.
He's
Will-
coming.
Will Hyman. Mark Jackson.
Here.
Wayne Worth.
Here.
Patty Wright. Here. Vice Mayor Riffle.
Here.
Mayor Malfajet.
Here. We're going to do an overview of the MOU regarding opioid settlement funds. A2.
Are you all, so I can go through everything now? Are you okay with that?
What's that?
Are you okay if I go through this?
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
So before we go through the overview of the MOU, I think we'll just sort of combine the three, if that's okay?
It's fine.
Or especially 2 and 3. So in your package, I emailed out to you, there was an opioid funding application form. There was also an opioid policy that was attached there. So they're very specific, the MOU is very specific in regards to what the opioid funding can be spent on. And when council is going to accept, I believe there should be an application process, and this money should be treated just as grants in West Virginia are treated. So there should be an application process. You have to meet all the criteria to be considered by council to have access to that funding. And I see that funding fitting into 5 main categories, which is education, emergency services, prevention, intervention, and rehabilitation. So with that, and this matches up quite nicely with the MOU and what the intent of the MOU seeks to accomplish. So there's a number of criteria in the application and the policy. The application outlines what the minimum is that you have to have, and then the policy outlines the intent of that money. And again, both of those match up with the intent of the MOU. So I wanted to know, on page 11 with the MOU, Exhibit A is where everything is explained on what that funding can be used for. And I know everybody has reviewed it, so I wanted to know if there's any specific questions.
I'm talking about the...
Yeah, Appendix A,
okay.
page 11, yeah. If there's any specific questions on the MOU that myself or our attorney March could answer.
On this A is first responders, schools, community, support groups, and families. Where, I mean, if I'm not mistaken, does this stuff have a shelf life, Chief?
Sir?
And it has to be refrigerated or kept cool?
Narcan?
Yeah,
No, as long as, but it does have an expiration.
It does have an expiration date.
okay.
But this is for expanding training. So if all of a sudden, we've heard there's a stronger opioid drug that is on the streets. If all of a sudden they come up with a new medication to help combat that, if training is needed for that, for new hires, we can expand training. If we do some sort of a project for the community where we're actually providing some Narcan, we could provide training for that, whether that's in person or creating like a Zoom training we put on our website on how to use it. So in that instance, the opioid funding could be used to create that program for the training.
Did you have a good response when you had that about a month ago up there at the station?
As far as the
Public?
group that comes in to distribute,
Yeah,
that's actually gonna start back up again. They usually give out 10 to 20 vials or packages of Narcan per day. They're up there for about 8 hours a day.
wow. That's
So,
good.
I mean, they do have people that come through and happy as can be. We try not to crowd them. We try to give them some openness and also give them a little privacy that they can come in, get what they want, and go ahead and go.
If I can add on to that also, we do have the, I think it's the Harrison County Quick Response Team, and it's made up of peers and peer recovery coaches, and they, I think they're the ones who participate in that. We can also reach out to them, find out a little more about that, and engage them in this.
Thank you. Other questions about the MOU? And so what this application process and the policy really accomplish is because it was based off the MOU, we'll be able to go through as the applications come through and say, you know, this really matches up with the MOU. We'll bring, after it's reviewed by staff, we'll bring it forward from council for consideration, and at that time, council can review a business plan. Council, if they would like, can request someone come in for a presentation for further information.
Well, you're just on Schedule A, right?
Yeah, schedule,
Okay.
exhibit appendix A,
All right. Are we gonna go over Schedule B?
that's part of exhibit A, so all the schedules are in there.
Okay.
Exhibit A includes Schedule A, Schedule B, which outlines what the funding can be used for.
Now, some of these organizations that are gonna come in and, you know, present their RFPs for some of this funding, are we gonna make sure that they are, especially when it comes to, intervention, rehabilitation, and also, even somewhat prevention, I guess you could say. Are we gonna ensure that the current programs that they have, oh, I got it right here.
Yeah, there's the whole
Yeah.
thing.
Are we gonna ensure that the programs that they have are evidence-based?
That is one of the, in the application form, they have to show a demonstrated history of success that's evidence-based,
Okay, good,
100%.
yes.
Because in my opinion, this funding is not a place to try new ideas to see if they work. There's already programs out there that have demonstrated success in helping those who are addicted. And those, if we need to expand those or provide additional funding to give them more resources, that is, in my opinion, that is what is going to help the opioid crisis that we are facing.
And you said that's in the,
In the application,
we
so
should make sure that's clear.
the procedural requirements is, have you filled out the city opioids funding application form? Is the applicant a government entity or tax exempt nonprofit? It needs to fit into one of the 5 categories of education, emergency services, prevention, intervention, or rehabilitation. Does the applicant have an established history of addressing the concerns and projects encompassed by one or more of the 5 categories? If any of the questions from 1 through 4 are not a yes, it will be denied by staff because it needs to fit those 4. Is
Okay.
the request significant? If so, has the applicant provided a funding project nonprofit business plan? We would like to see that, but if you go down to 6 through 13, on those considerations, we are going to take into consideration the track record and the history, that you've been established for a minimum of 12 months, because then you will be able to provide some evidence to council of success. Your other sources of funding, both current and projected, whether the request is a one-time or an ongoing expense. So is it a one-time to build a building, or is it a 10-year plan that requires operating expenses? Are you asking for the city's involvement at all? We want to know about. And the proposed outcome and the related evidentiary support is really important as well, and the funding of similar programs. So we don't want to see a reinvention of the wheel with a new entity with something that's already working.
Right. And they'll get both of these, they'll get this application form and this funding policy.
All of this will be placed right up on the website. We'll be
Okay.
putting it in the newsletter, in the newspaper, and we will be putting it out on social media as well.
Okay.
I'm also going to send this to the county if council adopts this. This is what we're doing, because it'd be nice to have an approach with all the cities in Harrison County and jurisdictions that we kind of have a similar approach. I'll also be sending this off to the West Virginia First Foundation so they know that we're taking an evidence-based approach and using these funds.
And I believe the county is gonna be, you know, looking at organizations that are evidence-based too, from what I understand. A lot of, you know, what I see that, and I see this in section, well, it's on Schedule B, Section C, subsection 15.
What page is that on?
That would be, sorry,
I wrote
I think it's
page numbers on there.
be on page 18, sorry.
Page 18, thank you.
In subsection 15, I mean, it does, it does say engage and support nonprofits and faith-based community as a system to support outreach for treatment. From what I understand, that's more of a, of triaging services to make sure people are getting connected to those resources. Now, I understand we have QRTs all through the state, and we have a quick response team, QRT, here in this region. But we only have 2 QRTs. So I would just suggest to council that, when you're looking, at trying to mitigate, a lot of the substance use issues that are on the street level, that law enforcement's dealing with, and maybe our fire department's dealing with too, that we do look into, helping these evidence-based, programs expand some of the outreach support that they have to these, various folks that need connected to treatment. Because I think that's the missing component we see a lot, is that if someone has contact with law enforcement, if there's not an arrest for a possession charge, but someone, they look high or something, there's just really no, you can't expect law enforcement to then, play social worker and try to get or peer recovery coach and say, okay, let's try to get you in some sort of treatment or triage you. That's gonna take some real professionals, that are professionals in that field, in the social work field, to be able to do that. And I think it'd be a good piece if we found an organization that was evidence-based already, that had something similar to this, to come in our community and, or at least to invest in that program, to where that program could expand to potentially help our law enforcement and our first responders with some of those triage services after contact is made.
I would also like to throw back out there, I had mentioned before, I think that we need to start taking a real hard look at a social worker embedded with the police department, because I've mentioned our police officers are not social workers, and we need some kind of conduit, between the police and the individuals that they're dealing with who are struggling with substances. The city of Martinsburg has a social worker on board up there. I've talked to the mayor up there, and he's crazy about that program he's got going on up there. There's also a LEAD program, which is law enforcement assisted diversion. That's a program that basically, I think that's a nationwide program, but I know they're doing it up in Morgantown. I think that, we need to take a look at that and see how that's working. And then Buchanan just instilled the Peers to Police program. So there are things that we can do. We need to start looking at some of these things that we can do. Our police officers, they're not recovery coaches, they're not social workers. We need to put that piece in the middle so that the individuals who are able to do these jobs can do these things.
Is that a paid position, and is that on call? How does that work, Mark?
I'm not real sure. I'd have to talk to the social worker position.
Yeah.
I'd have to talk to Kevin to find out about that.
I can do some investigation on that.
That's a great
And
idea.
I'll get you his
I
number.
agree that if that's an avenue that council wants to go forward on, I can investigate that, come forward with a proposal to council that includes a funding proposal, so the city of Clarksburg contributing, going to the county asking they to contribute,
Right.
and going to the West Virginia First Foundation asking them to contribute. Because in the grand scheme of things, if you were hiring even a couple social workers, let's say you had a 7 or 10-year plan, that's gonna cost money, and I think if you leverage all that funding, you could really achieve some great results for the entire county.
Right.
And I'm
So,
saying there may be already existing organizations out there that have evidence-based programs that would probably apply for some of this funding. Maybe some of our funding, maybe some of the county's funding, maybe with the West Virginia First Foundation's funding, that, they may present a plan to us, and we may like that, and. You know,
I
and
agree
think-
with that. So what
Yeah.
I'm speaking about, not to interrupt, Counselor,
Go ahead.
is coming forward that plan and identifying an organization that we can say, we've come up with a plan, it's been approved by the city, the county, West Virginia First. This is the funding for 4 social workers. Tell us how you're going to do that, and tell us how you're gonna track it so we can make sure we're accountable to the public. But then we're not actually taking it on as the city, so when that funding plans ends, we're like, how do we fund this?
Right.
I agree that it needs to be done by an organization that does have expertise in that, and we can identify those local experts to do that.
Great, that's good. I'm just saying I do a lot of street outreach.
It's a great approach.
And I see that's a lot of the problems that we're facing is how can we triage some of these folks into
I agree.
care, so.
And we tried, our city attorney and myself, we tried to make this, to cover all the bases, but also make it very simple to apply, and try to, what we're using as criteria for the application that's going to achieve what we feel is the best results for the city and the county.
And I was gonna say, by the way, I do like these categories. I mean, I call them buckets, but this is really good because it narrows it down to it at least gives folks that are sending RFPs in or doing presentations. It gives them an idea of like what categories we're looking for. That way, we're not just trying to reinvent something
Right.
with 10 minutes before a meeting.
Well, I think with these 5 categories, we can track results with these 5 and track the impacts on the city of Clarksburg and all the surrounding communities and the county.
So let me ask this, so with these 5 categories here, do we, does each category get a specific allocation of percentage of funding from this opioid funding, or is it just gonna be?
That
What
is going
council
to be up to council. I would say the bigger the funding allocation requested, the allocation specifically from the West, it needs to be in relation to how much money we have. Like if someone comes and wants $750,000, we'll say, okay, maybe we can support 10%. You should go to the county and ask for another 10%, and then we'll give you a letter of support to go to the West Virginia First Foundation and ask for the additional 80%. And we'll help with advocating on your behalf for that.
Because I mean, we currently have, what, 750,000 now? something like
It's,
that.
I believe it's just under 690 because of
Okay,
the
just 'cause
cameras
of the
that we
cameras, yeah.
purchased. And we do have more money coming in. But again, whatever funding we're getting is peanuts compared to the $1 billion that's sitting at the state level. So we need to make
Right.
sure that we're leveraging that.
And I clearly understand that, so I guess, my question to council would be, since I guess altogether we're gonna get right around 2.7 million, how would we wanna set this up
Well,
categorically?
We do
Like,
have a
How
question
much
in
funding do you
here.
want to put in each one?
I don't think
I
that's a good
think-
approach.
Richard, is it in here when we wanted to know about, oh yeah, the applicant's other sources of funding, both current and projected? That's when they would answer. Ours is gonna be $1 million, we're asking for 10% from the city of Clarksburg. And that's when they would outline, because if they say we want $1 million, we want 10% from the city of Clarksburg, we're not sure where the other 90% is coming. Well, then the answer is gonna be, then you need to figure that out and you need to come back to us when you have that plan. And I don't think it's unreasonable to say you're approved on the contingency that you have approvals from other funding sources.
I don't think we should allocate a certain amount of money to different buckets. I think we need to see what is already out there. I think if we put 250,000 or put 25% there, 15% there, I think we need to know what's already out there before we kind of decide what goes there. Because it might be one category might be more important in our county or more area than another area because it's already doing well in that thing. So I think we should be careful of allocating it that way.
Well, maybe we just do further investigation on prioritizing, what category has the most need in our community.
Well, I do think 3 to 5 are the most important.
Okay.
That would be my recommendation to council. If you would like me to put them in a different, reorganize the order, I would put prevention, intervention, and rehabilitation as 1, 2, and 3. These were not put in any specific order, so
I
I do
think-
apologize.
I don't want us to, and this is something I never taught, I always want to move fast, but I think this is one thing that we shouldn't move fast on. Applications I would expect them to be coming in pretty soon, if they're not already being prepared. I don't want to move too fast on it, and I think a lot of times applications are coming in will probably help us see those needs too.
agree.
So the information will come in, the fact-based things that we're looking for, the information will come with us, working with, the other organizations. We can kind of figure that out, but I definitely don't want to, we learned the hard way giving out money with the small business grants thing, a very hard way. So we should be very careful, have good follow-up and good oversight, and not rush to give the first person to sign up some money.
And I agree, and that's one of the reasons why with the application form, it's coming to staff first before it's even gonna come to council. So it needs to pass the sniff test before it even reaches your table.
And I think it's also important that we all keep in mind that, this is for the long run. We'll get these monies for a period of time, and then they're gonna be cut off. And we need to make sure that whatever plans are coming to us, these are plans that are gonna be sustainable for years to come. The individuals are coming, and it's not gonna be just, okay, for the next, year or two, this is gonna work, and then we're gonna just fade out. Let me see your plan of sustainability. How are you gonna keep this thing going? Because, as I said before, we've always had a drug problem in this city. And if they get a handle on meth, you know what, there's gonna be another drug come down the pipeline. So we need to make sure that these organizations, these agencies, whoever it is, whatever these plans are, that they're gonna be around, they'll be able to help, get these things taken care of.
And I agree with you, Councilman Jackson. I think that's the approach, and that's where you hope that the people that are sending RFPs in and doing presentations, are evidence-based, and they have a good track record, of providing these services for a long time. And with that said, to piggyback off of what you said, I think our funding stream, the $2.7 million, is just it's not even a drop in the bucket compared to the $770 million that the West Virginia First Foundation has, and that's the sustainability there. Maybe our 100,000 or 200,000 that we allocate to whoever it may be, whether it's a prevention or intervention or rehabilitation service, that may help them hire an employee to address a problem, or develop a program for prevention that may address a program for maybe a year or two. But like you said, we want to make sure that they have that they have a plan going forward, and hopefully that plan is, well, we're going to seek more funding from the West Virginia First Foundation too, to be more sustainable 10 years down the road.
So we're just gonna be like a jumpstart for them, basically.
That's pretty
much,
much the idea, is I would love to see long-term plans, and we contribute a small portion of it, contingent on the fact that you have all the funding in place to have continuity in your plan. Because if you come for us for a year, this is a much longer solution than a year. So those plans aren't going to really help.
Could we make that a requirement, that you can't apply with us unless you have also, whether they get the grant funding from the state or not?
I can put that wording in there, that council can give contingent approval, and you have to actually show documentation that you've been approved for other funding sources before final approval and the funds will be released. Because I think that's very, very reasonable, and it's gonna hold people accountable, and council's gonna be able to be accountable to the public on how they've appropriated these funds.
In other funding, I guess other organizations that have received other funding and stuff, that doesn't have to be necessarily from the West Virginia First Foundation, because
No.
they just hired an executive director today. So it's gonna take, a
Yeah.
few months for them to develop a staffing structure to be able to even take RFPs on their end. So it could be any entity pretty much that says, okay, we have this program here, we've received funding to help us with this program, and by receiving the city's funding, we'll be able to add to this program and help the city and benefit the city with, with this additional programming. Is that what you're trying to get, Vice Mayor?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I just want a commitment from the organization to also attempting to get money. Now, I also worry about expansion in certain areas because we can't become a hub for the amount of money we put in it won't be the only one providing that.
Absolutely.
We've seen that in this community, unfortunately, and so, I mean, showing that they are committed to going to other State Department or other things that they agree with that idea, to where it may be happening, southern part of the state, northern part of the state, I think that's a good way to see the direction of money. I know we can meet with the county level, and I think hopefully we can meet with them consistently as they're giving out money. I mean, as applications are coming from them, maybe just meeting with them and going over applications together with staff and our staff and their staff, and just seeing where that money is going. We follow the money. It's a good program, especially if the first, what's the organization called? Family First? Or
West Virginia First.
West Virginia First. And if they're approving it, then that says a lot. If the county's approving it, that says a lot. Then if we are, it's we can follow that way.
Right, so maybe if that's the consensus of council, maybe I move number 9, which is under substantive considerations, maybe I move it up as a requirement, instead of just something we could take into consideration, that it's required that we take that into consideration.
Yeah, I like that.
So how many people are we gonna have on this board? And who's it gonna be made up of?
This board, like when it comes to staff or?
Staff, yeah.
So probably 3, it might be 5, so it'd be the police chief, the fire chief, myself, the city attorney, and probably the city clerk.
Okay.
And then, once it meets all the required criteria,
Comes to us.
it would come to council. And this does not give any promises of funding, nor does it give any promises of timeline, because I agree that you might get a rush of applications, and let's say 6 of them did meet all the criteria. Council may say, we want to see what else comes in over the next 3 months as everybody starts ramping up their programs.
Are we gonna resend these applications back out if they don't meet the
We
criteria
will
and let them?
Yes,
Okay.
we'll let them know,
I mean, so that they can be able to upgrade their
Yes.
application.
of course.
And I definitely would like it to be, which I think you guys are going to be able to handle that, because once it gets to us, it's a whole different ballgame. So if it doesn't need to get to us yet, it doesn't need to get to us yet. We don't want to make it political. We don't want anything like that. So, yeah, I mean, I trust the filter system that we have. I think that'll be good.
Is there other questions on number 2 or number 3?
I just had one more question in relation just to this whole thing. So if we do approve somebody or an organization for some funding, will there be follow-up on how those funds were expended?
Yes.
Okay, good.
So there will be a mechanism put into place.
Do we
Because,
require updates, public updates? They
Yes.
Come to us and
yes, we'll be putting into a spreadsheet for council and presenting it to council, probably quarterly, because although these aren't public funds, these are gonna have a massive impact on the city and the county, and I believe the will of council will be to be very transparent in how these were expended.
Could we have the organizations come to us?
Yes, we can.
Like, I mean, right in front of us,
Yes,
public, everybody
I will,
hears it.
we can actually add that in as a requirement.
Please.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna
Fantastic.
say, maybe
Instead
add
of-
that into the policy.
Okay,
Yeah,
That's
instead of
what-
actually doing like lump sum distributions of cash in increments, you know,
Okay.
and maybe quarterly, the individuals have to come back in, they have to show us that they've hit certain benchmarks.
Okay.
You know, and then at that point, you know, another disbursement of monies would be released.
so terms for funding are at the discretion of the final agreement, and there's a requirement for quarterly presentations.
Right.
Okay, I will add those in with the city attorney.
I mean, I think this money, as a council, could be the biggest decisions we're making because of the impact it's had directly on our city. It's not, no, that's not, amount of money won't touch the impact it's really had on our city. But if we don't take this money seriously, every single dollar, and think about the impact, whether we're walking down the street or looking back at our own families, I think we're doing a big disservice to the people and the families that have been affected by this. And I mean, my family personally, so I'm gonna take this very seriously, and I hope, you know, we can all take it as serious. It's like our biggest decisions we've probably made on council. This is, we gotta get this right. Have to.
We just have to make sure the return on investment of this money is exclusive. Every dollar is exclusively benefiting Clarksburg, period.
Yeah.
So,
Okay,
Will, you're awful quiet down there, buddy. You have anything?
Well, I
you'd like
appreciate
to
it.
add?
I guess that's a good segue. You know, from day one, literally, I've talked about investing in an ambulance service. I know I've talked with the fire chief, I've talked with Madam City Manager, and you know, I believe I spoke with Mr. Jackson here regarding, because there seemed to be some confusion about, well, where are you seeing this? Where are you seeing this? And I believe, and I'd like maybe an interpretation from Mr. Marsh there in Exhibit A, page 13, Part 3, Other strategies rather, Section J, number 3. I know that was a mouthful, but I'll read it to you in case you haven't found it yet. Invest in infrastructure or staffing at government, law enforcement, or not-for-profit agencies to support collaborative process and coordination with the purpose of reducing the oversupply of opioids, preventing overprescribing, opioid misuse, opioid overdoses, treating those with OUD and co-occurring SUD, MH conditions, supporting them in treatment or recovery, connecting them to care, or implementing other strategies to abate the opioid epidemic described in this opioid abatement strategy list. I believe that's pretty open-ended. You know, of course, I will,
what page was that on?
I believe it says 14 at the bottom, Exhibit A-14.
Oh, see, these, the ones I sent on email didn't have page numbers, so.
Okay, so we're now.
Page
on-
24.
Page 24 of the one I
This is
sent
the one
out?
that I sent you by
Okay,
email
and so it's
some
like
time
chapter
ago. And, you know, I believe that's a good start. And I know we recently got some funding from, I guess, Senator Manchin with a very nice email that we got from city manager the other day. And I believe that's a great start to do this. Chief, I know you've talked about this with me a couple times, maybe once or twice. You know, I believe, from what I understand, there's available personnel at the fire department who would be willing to serve on ambulances and be willing to be the drivers and paramedics. So it sounds like we have the staff in place to do this. It seems like the only investment we really need is the ambulances themselves, correct?
Technically, yes, but there's a lot of downturn when that comes to play. If you're taking men from the fire stations, putting them on ambulances, you're taking away fire protection. And those ambulances are gonna work, that ambulance is gonna run. They're gonna be picking up patients. That's 2 less men that I have to fight fire. That's 2 less men that I had to serve the rest of the citizens of Clarksburg. I believe that if we're going to go that route, that we need to invest in more personnel so that we do have the adequate staffing.
Tell me the difference between deploying personnel on a rescue truck at a scene where Harrison County EMS or another municipality has come to Clarksburg to serve somebody. Tell me what the difference is between sending an ambulance and a rescue truck in that situation. How is that affecting the personnel at the firehouse?
Okay, so if I send we have a typical car. I send an engine with 3 men. I send a rescue truck with 2 men. I send the backup or the blocking engine with 2 more men. Those 2 men that are going to be staffing that ambulance, 3, 5, 7, 9 of my 11, 12, 13, whatever I have working for the day are now to that call. 2 of those men are going to have to continue to take that patient to United Hospital Center outside the city limits into Bridgeport, do whatever they need to do to turn the patient over and then come back into the city limits. Currently, as we're working, the men that I'm using, they're doing extrication. If we need to do extrication, they're doing patient stabilization until the ambulance gets there. They hand off the patient. My guys go back and service the rate for the next call. So there's a time difference in there of, how long are we tying up, men for the fire department to be available for the next call.
I mean, I think it's a statewide problem because of staffing overall.
Sure.
Yes, sir.
And if we can't pay, I mean, we'd have to add staff, not just rely on what we have. I think we'd have, how many more people would have to hire? 6, 7? I don't know.
My suggestion would be 6 men per ambulance, and that's just a start. I'm already operating under the NFPA guideline of how many men you're supposed to have on a working house fire. I'm already working under that as it is, so take 2 away, put them on an ambulance, I'm way below that line.
And if we're having trouble hiring people, then it's going to be like, the pressure's going to be on. We'll pull somebody, and
Is the
I
fire
worry
department
about
currently
that.
hiring for these deficiencies at the moment?
No, sir, because I'm not staff, I don't have that number of personnel staff for me in the budget. I'm given 45 men, and beside myself, my fire chief, or my deputy chief, and my fire inspector, the rest of my men are firefighters for it.
Do you think these deficiencies across the county has led to deaths here in the city of Clarksburg?
I would say that the drug situation that we have in the city of Clarksburg has led to deaths. Not as much as we're waiting for ambulances, but not to that point. My men are there to first respond. They're there to get Narcan. They're there to bag valve mask the patient, breathe for them until they come back around. They're there to stabilize until the ambulance does get there to transport the patient. I think the opioid situation that we're dealing with in the city limits and throughout the county and throughout the state and throughout the United States has a drastic impact upon EMS itself. It has definitely taken its toll on the staffing that you have on every ambulance throughout the state. And, our men are trained to perform and to stabilize until the ambulance gets there to transport. I think Harrison County EMS does a great job, but they're understaffed. I think Anmore, Nutter Ford, Salem, I think they all kick in to assist. But again, they're understaffed. If they had the right staffing, they would be able to.
Well, the Nutter Ford EMS is relatively new, correct? So, they had the ability to go out and roll an ambulance, I guess, right? Was that because of the need, because of the deficiencies within the county itself, or just, something that they saw, something that could help the citizens of Nutter Ford? Or, I'm just...
An ambulance service, as we were talking last council meeting, an ambulance service is very complex. It's not just going out here in a 911 world. You have to deal with non-emergency transports. You have to look at your pay rates. You have to look at how you're being reimbursed for the services that you're delivering. It is a very expensive thing to do. And the payer mix that we have within the city limits of Clarksburg is not a favorable payer mix to only support a 911 system. It has to be supported on a second tier of non-emergency transport. That is not available to the city of Clarksburg or the city, if we had an ambulance, because that piece is based in Bridgeport at United Hospital Center. Outside of my city limits, that would be meaning that we would have to take men from the city limits of Clarksburg, go to United Hospital Center. Then it compounds it even further and further. Now you're dealing with patients going to nursing homes, you're going to patients going to Ruby, you're taking patients to Pittsburgh. That is not what a good service does that for here for the city of Clarksburg.
Well, and to add on to what you're saying, Chief, if the plans for this opioid funding are used for prevention, intervention, and rehabilitation, I think the results from that will far exceed what we could do from an ambulance service. If you start addressing getting people into rehabilitation, if you start educating kids and youth, you will see the benefits of that over, and so, in all transparency, I asked the chief to look for this. I've told council this into an ambulance service because I assumed it would be very simple, because like what you said, none of Fort's doing it, but because of the demographic, our boundaries of the city, the facilities that don't exist within Clarksburg, it's actually not something I believe, and Chief Steve is going to present this to council, that is a viable endeavor going forward, unfortunately. At this time, now that may change. At this time, I would not, based on what I've heard and research with Chief Steve, I would not recommend that going forward.
Would you guys be surprised to know if the organization, the foundation, the big lot of money in the county, I mean, it'd be safe to assume they will be trying to fix this problem because it is a statewide problem.
Well, ambulance is actually, the lack of staff for EMS is a countrywide problem.
Well, that's what I'm
And
saying,
there is
money,
a
I
big
mean, not
disparity
necessarily just
between emergency services in an ambulance and, let's say, nursing staff in the hospital, and there's such a wage disparity. I think a lot of the problems come from that issue, and that's just from research I've done. If you're getting paid under $20 an hour to be an EMS and you're taking university training, why wouldn't you just finish off your nursing degree and get paid a lot more money?
Yeah.
There's an issue that exists there that I don't think Clarksburg has the resources to fix at this time.
I think I saw in Marion County, they're $18 an hour for, like, that's just not enough for what they have to do. Money's gotta be coming down to help fix that, and they'll have to raise the wages. We can't get in the middle of that.
And if we did create an ambulance service, the employees we would probably be taking are people in the county or the state that are already employed as an EMS worker, and we're just pulling from someone else. We're not really solving the problem.
Well, in all fairness, West Virginia is in demographic collapse. So unless we import tens of thousands of EMS workers from out of state, nothing is going to be fixed in the state of West Virginia. But I don't want to get too dark here. So
You normally do though, so go ahead.
but let it flow. But I just see it as, I tried to make a point at the last council meeting of how I felt about it, and obviously, I know you guys are responding to these calls, and obviously we all appreciate it, and I think that the public appreciates it too. It just seems like, we're just not doing our best there, and it seems like we should be tackling problems like this. Can you tell me, Chief, has the city of Clarksburg ever had an ambulance service?
Yes, sir. We did.
Oh, okay.
Way back in the 1950s, 40s, we had a station wagon with a person, and I swear to you, you put the person in the back of the ambulance, you drove to this intersection, you turned back and looked. If the person was moving, you turned to the left and you went to the hospital. If you turned and you looked to the right and they're not moving, you turned right and you went to the funeral. And that was EMS in the 40s and 50s.
Sure.
That's how
And
it went.
Can you tell me
And the
why
60s.
the city parted ways with the ambulance service? I mean, is there any?
Things evolved.
Sure.
Medicine evolved. We were starting into the 60s. We started Vietnam. We started learning about EMS. An actual EMT course was put out in the late 60s, early 70s. We learned that two people in an ambulance treating the patient, doing first response, made a difference. The fire department was beyond that. We couldn't man it. They got rid of that. Harrison County EMS started back in the 60s, late 60s, early 70s, started as a volunteer service. Everybody was working for the glass plants and everything. You had mountains of people. You had people volunteering to bump the other volunteers because that was what they called a bump crew. And they had They had permission to bump the other ones. You had people volunteering everywhere to come in. As volunteerism died, as the class plans died, you had to start paying people. We started into the 80s, we started in the 90s, the volunteers shrunk, the pay continued to get bigger, and that's where we're at now. The fire department, like I said, that stopped in the late 50s, 60s. I talked to the fire chief, the oldest fire chief we still have living, and he talks fondly about having that single station wagon until
Ecto
we
one.
crashed it.
Pontiac Marie.
The gas pumps down at where McDonald's is now. There used to be a gas station down in that area, and they crashed that station wagon into the gas pumps, and they waved off, said, "We're done, no more."
All funeral homes, the hearse had red bubbles on the top of them, and those were the emergency cars. And, you know, that's what they used on funerals, was that exact car.
It just seems like, you know, from my observation, of course, I didn't, you know, I'm a pretty young guy, all things considered, I like to think that at least, but it seems like the majority of the city services we've seen, and I don't want to get too off track here, it seems like we've shed city services as the years have went on. And that seems like a negative to me, especially with the budget we operate with and other things. So I'll leave it at that. I do appreciate your time. And thanks for coming out.
Yes, sir.
So opioid policy and application process,
No, we did that one.
we did that
So
one.
we're on number 4.
Discussion regarding health and wellness committee.
Nick, can you pass this to please? So, I know there's been some discussion on the Health and Wellness Committee, and because we've come up with this suggestion for the process and policy for the opioid funding, and I know that was the main focus of the opioid funding, I wanted to get an idea of where we want this Health and Wellness Committee to go, or you want to see how the policy with the opioid funding goes and put this on hold. So I had some questions to ask. Who's going to be on the committee? I have a suggestion for that, which is 3 members of staff, 2 council representatives, 1 from the county, and 4 from external organizations or healthcare professional. And what are the goals? So if we've taken care of the opioid, are we going to look at homelessness, mental health, food insecurity, obesity, health, diabetes? What is the plan? What are we planning on doing? Are we going to host events? Is it education? Do we want to partner with other agencies and serve as a conduit between others in the city? And the funding of it. So do we need funding? Where do we want the funding from? Or is it on an as needed basis?
I've got a binder full of information from agencies all throughout the area who provide different services. As far as the funding goes, a lot of agencies already have funding that they use. What I'm looking at is something that will be more of a centralized networking type of tool. I know I go to a meeting every month down in Fairmont. It's a stakeholders meeting, and it's where all of the agencies and organizations who provide services come together, they talk, they share the services so that everybody knows who's doing what. Now, we do need, I feel, one centralized location, maybe the health department, if we can get them on board, health access, if we can get them on board, so that we do have a starting point. And individuals know, if an individual is walking down the street and they decide, you know what, I need help, I can walk in to the health department and tell them, you know what, I need help. This is what I'm looking for. This is what I need. And from there, we've already sat around the table, we've talked, individuals know, okay, I don't provide that service myself, but I know the agency that does. I can get them handed off to this agency, that agency. And as far as the funding, if the funding is necessary and needed, we can cross that bridge when we get to it. But so far, the one thing that I found is that there are a lot of agencies out there who are receiving a lot of funding, but we just don't have a good vehicle for disseminating information to say, hey, look, this agency's doing this, everybody's operating in silos, and we need to pull everyone together so that we can start. But, that's just one. I'm gonna go ahead and stop right there because I could go on a roll.
No, I got a lot of good information from that. So you're looking to really communicate out to the public everything that's available in Clarksburg and Harrison County, and having a centralized hub of where they could go to access If they say, I'm having a mental health issue, we can say, well, this is where you need to go.
Right.
If you are having an issue with the house, I know there's some grants for for those who are low income to help fix their house. So that gives me more of what we're looking for. That makes a lot of sense. And I can work with that, and I can have a draft to bring back to council at the next council meeting if you would like.
And I'll be happy to provide, some of the agency information that's available out there.
Thank you.
For these different things.
Isn't the Nardelli,
Well, I was gonna say that too. Healthy Harrison would be a great resource to contact. There are already a coalition set up to really disseminate information and things such as that. And the board members are from WVU, hospital, UHC, health departments. So, it's a lot of the same people that are on that board.
John Paul Nardelli is
Yeah.
his name.
Not give you his number.
You got his number?
I just had a question. So what's our local government's role in this, would be our local government's role in this health and wellness committee?
Well, based on what Councilman Jackson has said, I really believe it's our job to get the information out so that information is accessible to people, depending on what their need is, because right now, maybe that's part of the issue, is people are overwhelmed with the amount of information, or they don't have the information.
Okay.
Because if it's only on the internet, if you are unhoused, that may not be where you get your information from. So we need to make sure that we're communicating in a variety of methods that people in different situations would have access to, if that makes sense.
Well, that, and on top of that, if we have an individual, who's out here in the street, the city's role, we would be real quick to send a police officer out there to try to tackle that situation. We need to make sure that we're offering all these services that are possibly available as a city, whether it's mental health, whether it's substance abuse, we need to make sure that we're offering, all the services that we can possibly offer to all the citizens here in our city.
But would we be a direct provider of those services, or we just provide information and referral?
Well, basically, we've never been, a direct provider. I mean, it's not
Right.
like we're a mental health agency. So really, all we would be doing is resource brokering. We would just be actually getting with individuals, gathering resources with them, and helping individuals stay connected so that people know, okay, look, if you need this service, you can contact this agency, helping individuals know, this is what everyone does and how you can make referrals and contacts to those individuals.
Okay.
I will work on that and get back to council with a draft and some of the ideas of what we can do.
Did you send a text message out to everybody that the president did sign the Joe Manchin's,
I think I sent an email saying we were successful in the grants, yes,
the grants have been awarded?
yes.
Oh, okay.
1.586 million, I believe. So the fire, the police, and the downtown initiatives were all approved, and we will be submitting the next application for the congressional spending on Monday for a bunch of new projects, and I will send council that information on Monday.
Can we write a letter to him, thanking him personally?
That is something that the city clerk does now for everything that's awarded. We initiated that about 6 months ago. So yes, every time a grant is awarded, we send a thank you letter on behalf of the city, council, and the mayor.
Okay, and what I would also like to add in is part of that health and wellness committee, we do have individuals who are struggling with substances here in our city, but we have a lot of people who aren't struggling with substances here in the city. And I don't want our citizens to be forgotten for 1 minute. One of the things that, I would like to see is, I think at the senior citizens, they do some kind of a exercise program down there. The library, they do some type of exercise program over there. The PWA, let's talk to them. Some type of exercise program, maybe under Jackson Square the evening or two a week, And, you know, even like a Silver Sneakers walking program through downtown. Let's get one of the police officers to walk downtown so people feel safe. Let's get people back in the downtown area again and moving around. We keep talking about revitalization, but we're not talking about how we're gonna get them here. You know, this is how we get people back downtown, by offering them simple things. You know, come back downtown. It's safe downtown. You can walk around. You know, once they feel safe to come downtown, you know, then people start to look at the idea, you know what, maybe if I opened up a business down here, I could do all right. There are people down here moving around again.
So that's actually Healthy Harrison's mission. We did a competition. Unfortunately, Clarksburg didn't win, Bridgeport won. But so it was putting together these plans of how we can get our community more active. And then they awarded money to help facilitate this plans. It wasn't that much money, but there is, Will was on, you were on the Northview team, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so there was a downtown Clarksburg team, there's like a Northview, Staley type team. So we both put together these PowerPoints, these presentations that could be a citywide programs that could do that exactly. I thought both of our organizations had great, I think, plans and ideas. So Healthy Harrison, I think they're still active. I haven't seen much.
Yeah, they're still good.
So I don't know what they're exactly doing right now. So, I mean, I'm sure they're still active, so that's definitely a good. Martin, you're a consultant or something for that?
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
member.
Anybody have anything else they want to talk about on the agenda?
We'd add that on the agenda.
You can fill the whole evening up. Patty, you have anything, Ms. Wright? Wayne? Jerry? Mr. Vice Mayor? Mr. Howe, you have any?
Thursday.
Mr. Jackson?
Yeah, in the MOU that the city manager sent out on item F, treatment for incarcerated populations,
Page is that on?
page 12.
Thank you.
I think it would behoove us to reach back out to our delegates, follow up, and find out where House Bill 5363 went, because that was the goals program. And that's a program where they do rehab in jail. So we need to find out what's going on with that, you know, and find out, you know, what can we do to partner with them to make sure that individuals who are being incarcerated they're able to get that help. You know, they've already expanded that program. And, you know, I've talked to Delegate Petito. We found out that they do have the goals program down at North Central Regional Jail. So, you know, we need to find out, you know, what we're able to do and how we can actually make sure that we're able to utilize that program for individuals who are being incarcerated through the city.
I will find out.
Looks like it died in House Judiciary.
Is that right?
Yep.
But the program is still there.
If there's nothing else, call for adjournment.
So moved.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? We're adjourned.